Right, hello, welcome guys to this quick tutorial video on transferring files or file transfers from a Linux to a Linux machine and also from a Linux machine to a Windows machine. So we're going to look at the scenarios in this quick demonstration. So I've got three virtual machines here. I've got my Kali Linux machine. I've got a Windows machine as well. This is a Windows 11, but you can use any Windows, especially those of you working in the labs. You probably have access to your Windows 7, so that should be fine. And I've got an Ubuntu Linux distro as well. So you can use any sort of virtual machine that you've got as a Linux machine for this, or you can use your Kong virtual machine, which has been given to you in the labs. So we have these three virtual machines. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is creating a file. So I'm in this directory. Let's just move out of this directory. So I can move into this directory called tools on my Linux machine. If I do a list, I have a bunch of files in this directory. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to do nano. I'm going to call this transfer.txt. And I'm going to put in some text. I'm going to put hello world. Okay, in this file, and save that file. Yes. Okay, if you cut this file to read the contents, we can see the contents of this file is hello world. So I want to then transfer this file from my Kali to this Ubuntu machine that I've got. Okay, so I've got access to this Ubuntu machine. I'm logged in, but I want to transfer this file remotely over the network to this Ubuntu machine. So you can't copy and paste, you're over the network. So how do we do this? There are different sort of techniques. Well, one I'm going to be showing you is using a tool called wget. So you go on this machine and we can do which wget. Now wget is a utility that can allow us to fetch a file. So we can use this wget utility to fetch a file from a web server. So you can use it to download a file from a web server. So what we need to do is to then create a web server in this specific directory. In this tools directory, we can create a web server. So before I do this, I'm going to open a new terminal. Let's make the text a bit bigger. And I'm going to confirm what the IP address of this Kali machine is. So I do an if config. So the IP address of my Kali is 192.168.219.136. So all of these machines are on the same network, I believe. So if I do an if config on this, I can see the IP address is 219.130. So the IPv4 is also starting the same 192.168.219.130, and this Kali is 136. So let's create a web server. So we can run this command python -m http.server, and let's see what happens if I click on enter. Let's do that again. So I have to use the command python 3, not just python. So python 3-m http.server. If I click on enter, Python automatically starts a web server on port 8000. Okay. So if you go on here, let's go on to our Ubuntu and we open something like Firefox or a web browser. I want to go to this IP address. Okay, this IP address. And I'm going to open up this in an HTTP server. I'm going to open up this on an HTTP browser. I'm going to open up this web IP address and see if we can have access to the web server. So I should have Firefox. Okay, so let's go 192, start new session, 192.168.219.136. Now if I go in here, there's nothing running on this IP address. But if you remember, when we ran this command, Python 3-m http.server, Python created a web server on port 8000. So we have to go to port 8000. So we can go to port 8000, with a colon 8000, and click on enter. So not HTTPS, HTTP, because it is not a secure server. So let's do HTTP. You can see straight away we have access to all of those files. You can see the files that we created here, all of the files in this tools directory, including the including the transfer.txt file that we created. We can see that we can view them here. So we can just download this file if we want. So if I want to download this file, I can just click on, let's say I want to download this dvdx.py. I can just click on this and I could read this file, or I could download this file, for instance. Okay, so this is one way that we can do this, but we want to do this from the command line. We want to do this from the command prompt and not from a browser. So remember, we still have our Python server running, and you can see here it says, when we try to access a file, we can see the get request and it's giving us a 200 OK. Okay, so we're able to get that file. So let's use wget to download a file. So we can use wget http 192, the IP address of my Kali, 219.136:8000, because that is where the web server is running. Then I specify the file I want to download, which is transfer.txt. Remember, transfer.txt is the file we created initially. So we want to download this file to our Ubuntu machine. So if I click on enter now, we can see connected OK, and we got a 200 OK message. The file was downloaded 100%, and then we have this file. So if we do a list now, we can see transfer.txt, and we can read the content of transfer.txt, and we should see the message we put inside, which is hello world. Okay, we could go in here and have a look at the file itself, and that's the file we downloaded. So over the network, we can use a utility called wget to fetch a file, all right, remotely from a web server. So we start up a Python web server, and then we use wget to download the file. Okay, so let's do the same thing from a Windows. So we want to download on this Windows machine I've got this Windows 11 machine, and I want to download this transfer file.txt onto my Windows machine. So if I have a look, I've got some files here, like file. I've got places.sqlite. I've got some files here, but I want to download the transfer.txt file. So go to the Windows command prompt. All right. So if you see, this is my current working directory. So I'm in this folder users/behem. This is the folder I am. If I do a dir, you can see these are the folders within this specific directory. So I'm in this users directory, because you've got download, desktop, document, just like you have on a typical Windows machine. So clear screen. Now I am going to use two tools in this Windows. One of them is very easy to remember. The other one is using PowerShell. So the first one I'm going to do is the PowerShell. So make sure if you're typing this, you're typing it correctly and there are no typos. PowerShell-C, and then we do a colon, open up a bracket, new dash object, space, system, .net .web client, okay, close that bracket, .download file, open up a new bracket. Now I put in one quote, specify the IP address of your Kali, the HTTP server, 192.168.219.136. Remember, port 8000 is where the server is running, / the name of the file you want to download, transfer.txt. Now I close that quote, so this quote here, I close it with one quote here, put another bracket, no, not bracket yet, comma. Now this is the file, so we're using this PowerShell command, this web client, we're invoking this web client command, or PowerShell, and we're telling it to download a file, this file from this web server. So we're specifying the web server that you need to download that file from. Then we have to specify where you want it to save the file. All right, where on this Windows machine do you want PowerShell to download and save the file? So here I'm going to open another colon, C colon, and then I give it users/behem, which is the name of this, this directory. And I want to save it on the desktop because I want to be able to see it once it's downloaded. So I'm going to call it desktop, and I'm going to call this file transfer also .txt. That's the name of the file I want to download, and that's what I want to save the file name as. Okay, now I'm going to close that quote. So this quote here, I'm closing it with this, put on a comma and a double quote. This double quote closes the double quote here. So fingers crossed we don't have any typos. And if we click on enter, we can see we don't get any response, but if we go to our desktop, we have the file, transfer, hello world. Can you see that? Very easy. So it's just about the commands. Another command I'm going to use is a much more simpler command, and it's called CertUtil. So let's download that file. Again, CertUtil -URL cache -split -f, and then specify the file server 192.168.219.136, which is the IP address of my Kali. 8000, remember, that is where the web server is running. Specify the name of the file we want to download, transfer, that's the same file we just want to download, .txt. Now in this sort of command, I'm not specifying where I want to save it. So automatically, CertUtil will put it in this directory, this C users behem. This is where that file will be stored. Remember, the first one here was specified go to desktop. In this scenario, I'm just going to pull this file and it's going to be saved in this directory users behem. So let's click on enter. Says URL command successfully completed. If I do a dir, we can see the file here. Okay, transfer.txt. I can read the file with the type command. On Windows, use the type command to read the file. On Linux, use the cat command. So I can do transfer.txt and we can see the content of the file. If we want a graphical view, we could probably go to the file explorer of C users. So where are we? PC, C, users, behem, and we should be able to see our transfer.txt file here. We can open up with Notepad. Okay, so 2 commands to remember. Number 1, you have to set up the file server using Python. And you can see these are all of the requests you can see from the different IP address. So this is the one from my Windows, and this is the one from the Linux. So you have to set up a Python 3 HTTP server. Python will automatically save you on for 8000, and then you can use those commands I mentioned. On a Linux machine, wget. On Windows, you can use PowerShell or CertUtil. So hopefully that video is clear enough. and you can replicate this in a Linux or Windows environment of your choice. Thanks for watching, guys, and I should speak to you some other time. Take care.